Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Boy, do I have an exciting guest for you today. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. In this world, nothing can be certain except death and taxes. Benjamin Franklin, one of the founders, one of the smart men, said that. Our guest today is a smart man, somebody that I respect, admire, have a great time working and collaborating with. Feel like I've known them forever. They've been in their business long enough to know a few things, going on 4 decades. Although it looks like it's that doesn't make any mathematical sense. Background in accounting, partner at an amazing firm that has a great reputation for many, many, many decades now. Citrin, Cooperman. Yes, we're talking about the one and only Kevin Ryan. Thanks for coming on the Culture Matters podcast. I'm excited to get into this unbelievably interesting topic of accounting, tax, business success.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for the introduction and thank you for the opportunity to spend a almost July 4th weekend with you.
Yeah, and it's an honor. I do think this is something in a culture that we have today, it's more transient. That's the feedback I get from guests, people moving company to company to company. Something that stood out when we first were introduced through a mutual friend. Shout out to Peter Spergel, who I love and admire. He said, "You got to get connected to Kevin Ryan." When I looked at your LinkedIn and said that with your organization, for almost 38 years, and I know there's a story behind that, but my question is, as someone that's been consistent with an organization, what do you think the value is for that for listeners that want to have that type of relationship with their employer, with their company? They want to have that type. What advice would you give?
Well, first, I would say I was probably scared of change. So it started out with the Philadelphia Bulletin and being a paper boy. I didn't want to give
Wow.
up that paper route for a few years. And then while I was in school, it was an interesting story. The manager of a super fresh lived down the street, except he didn't have an automobile, didn't have a driver's license. So while we grew up in the northeast part of Philadelphia, the store was in South Philadelphia, and he needed to hire kids in his neighborhood so he would get a ride to and from work. So that
Huh.
was how,
Wow.
yeah, he went from baseball coach, friend of a dad, to my boss, and I stayed at Super Fresh while I was going to college and even had that as a second job my first year in accounting. So I think I've been able to stick it out because I look for the positives in the job and then try to accentuate them
Mm.
so that I enjoyed going to work and also building relationships. That started young. It's silly, but as a paper boy, I was given the opportunity to become the branch captain, which meant not big
Wow.
hard work, but everybody had to come into this little office that we had, and I had to build a rapport with 25 other paper boys and paper girls. So started to learn how important relationships were back then. I guess I was about seventh, eighth grade, and I kept that
Wow.
through most of high school. I think I was ridiculed a lot during high school. I was saying I was still a paper boy, but it was a means to make money, and I enjoyed it and had a lot of, maybe 100 customers
Wow.
on the paper route. So you got to interact with them on a daily and weekly basis.
What core values does being in the paper that role, what does it teach? I ask because Buffett was one of those, I believe, too.
Okay, that might be where the similarity ends between him and I. But the core value is understanding that Sunday morning, the customers would wait for their newspaper, right? That was the big thick one with all the coupons in it. It had the weekly ads and a lot of reading. And it was imperative to get up in that on that morning and get
Oh,
out there on Sunday. And it was also the thickest paper of the week. So not only after a Saturday night did you have to get ready to get up early Sunday morning, but it was the hardest working day also. But it was
wow.
important, and especially I noticed it with people that could not get around as much. Not everybody drove back then.
Hmm.
And some of the elderly, this paper was what they looked forward to on a daily basis. They weren't getting their news from the internet. The news on TV, there might have been, the Walter Cronkites of the world, but
Yep.
was not Philadelphia focused. So the newspaper was a big part of their day, and making sure I delivered it was of the utmost importance.
That's like, isn't that was a tougher time in the economy, wasn't it? That's like the end of Carter, like I
It,
would
it,
even
it
think.
certainly was tougher. I didn't really understand the economy
Yeah.
back then, right?
No,
I
I
was
didn't.
just
Yeah, I
hoping
didn't
to
either.
collect my money each week. The paper was a whole lot cheaper, and hopefully get a little tip for good service and build the relationships.
The reason I thought of that was if things are tougher and people they need information to figure out what's next, the uncertainty, the angst, it's like it goes a long way. And that, you don't show up on that Sunday morning. Oh, I slept in, I was doing this, and now the person is even more.
Yeah, that was, and no cell phones back then, but if they didn't get their paper or there was a problem with it, they'd call the house, and then my mom would tell me, Kevin, well, you got to call Mrs. So and so didn't get her paper, you have to go get one for her, right? And Sundays, I
Love
had
it.
some customers that waited for that Sunday paper and the coupons, and then they'd go shopping then. So I was really the beginning of
Accountability.
their day and kind of entrusted to help them.
Amazing. Yeah, it's accountability. Now, accounting, did you sleep, did you have a hard
So
time sleeping
I
as a
think
kid thinking about, oh my God, this is what I need to do. Forget the baseball cards.
so. Always had the baseball cards. Always played sports, but like numbers. And the paper route helped me there because each week you'd have to collect, make sure that's back when nickels and dimes and quarters were used. Make sure you had change. Um, I didn't know what I wanted to do. My grandfather on the Ryan side was a police officer. My dad was a police officer. They were heroes to me.
Oh,
Appreciated what they did. My brother ended up becoming a Secret Service agent. So it was in the bloodlines, but I was more of a numbers guy, and I guess perhaps a little bit more fascinated by businesses and how that could kind of allow me to dictate my future. I know dad worked 8 to 4, 4 to 12, weekends, all of that, and put his life on the line. And I don't know that I want to do good, but I don't know that I wanted to do good in that way. And I just
mm,
felt that being in business somehow, it would allow me to decide how I wanted to do things, when I wanted to work, how I wanted to work, and perhaps give me some more financial stability. So the paper route started that, and then in school, math, I was a kind of a math nerd.
wow, that's great. Now, and didn't you intern at a larger shop before you ended up where you were?
I did. So, took an accounting course in high school, thought, oh, this is pretty cool. It wasn't full of the exciting kids in class, nor was it overly exciting, but I kind of learned the foundation and I did like the teacher. So took accounting as a major, and then while I was at Temple University, my professor worked at a larger accounting firm and asked me if I'd be interested in working part-time. And I thought that would give me an opportunity to see what this looks like. Although I wouldn't be doing important work, I would get an understanding of what happens at an accounting firm.
Mm.
So I did that, and while it was a great stepping stone, it kind of showed me that, boy, I'm pretty naive, haven't been exposed to the world, and working at a big firm was a little bit intimidating. So I decided that, hey, I'd like to do this. I want to give this a try because I didn't know any other CPAs. Our neighborhood was very
Mm.
blue collar. So when I did graduate, I wanted to work at a small firm. And luckily, the firm's name at that point was Yampolsky Mandaloff, and a gentleman named Jack Yampolsky, who was an imposing guy, 6'3", 6'4", um, very, very intelligent, extremely well spoken, interviewed me. And I was like, oh, geez, this is kind of scary. I'd like to see what could be. And then, I'll never forget. He probably asked questions that you can't ask now. What does your dad do about
Wow.
your family, things like that. And then the tough part was write 5 sentences as to why you want to work at Yampolsky Mandaloff. I was like, wow, this
And
is
you didn't
where
have AI.
did not have AI. This was the BS coming out, right? How can I figure out 5 different sentences and try to fit them into why I want to work here and why I want to work in the industry?
Wow.
And he called me the next day, rotary phone. My mom said she couldn't get his name right. And, we had that company for 20 years. She still couldn't pronounce it in year 19, Jack's name. But that was the beginning.
Yeah, now we know why he was so serious and well spoken. To deal with that all day long. People can't pronounce your name. I
Absolutely.
I am curious about the what do you, in looking back, now you're on the other side of it. Not the other side, but you're there, right? Interviewing, sitting with the
Mhm.
younger folks.
I am
What do you think the
surprised.
value of the what? Or go ahead. No, no, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised. A, that I wasn't terminated, and B, that I stuck it out because so you figure you're in your early 20s. I love playing softball, so I played in a couple leagues, and I had a Corvette and I made $7.25 an hour when I got started. So I needed to work at Super Fresh at night. I worked the overnight shift
Wow,
and worked as an accountant during the day and then played about 3 softball games a week. And what ended up happening is I was leaving earlier in the day to go to softball, thinking that it's copacetic and no one knew until the next day. After one of the games, I saw a sign on the door, everyone must leave by the front door, not the side door. So that was his way of saying, hey, you can't sneak out anymore. Um, and then yeah, the first year review came and he said, I see some good things here. I see some things you need to work on, but if you're going to continue to work overnight, I'm going to fire you because you're
wow,
not giving your career its just due. I
wow,
said, well, I'm not making enough money to survive. He said, okay, then we'll give you a raise, but you have to quit. And so, unfortunately, I had to leave the super fresh and
wow,
supermarket era. And then I concentrated full time on the accounting. And I didn't have the skill set. I understood debits and credits, but I didn't see the big picture. But I knew I had to do certain things and I wanted to learn from the clients. What I did begin to understand, though, was that most of the clients there were successful. And in essence, they're paying me, but I can learn so much from them. So
wow, wow,
I would
wow.
always look to meet with them when we'd go out to the clients, meet with them at the end of the day just to kind of update them as to what I did, what I saw, but it was more me wanting to absorb from them their thoughts on their business and what their plans were, how they want to get from point A to point B. And I just thought, damn, this is great. They're paying me, but I'm learning from them.
What what are some of the early lessons, business lessons you digested from osmosis and
Putting trust in people and that you can't do everything, that you need to delegate. While you may be able to do it better than your employee, the only way that employee is going to learn is if they're battle tested. And I don't say that in a negative way, but just giving them the experience. And also understanding that you have to understand your finances. I remember working with a handful of great restaurants who would win awards. The chef was great, but they were losing money and they went out of business. They didn't price their food properly. They were more excited about making the magazine cover than surviving. So you have to understand the finances. If you're collecting sales tax on behalf of Pennsylvania, you have to pay it. That isn't your money. So understanding finances are a big part of a client being able to not just survive, but to thrive.
wow. How about from a core value standpoint? What would you say that original, even that, would you consider the Yemopolsky gentleman an early mentor?
Oh, absolutely. Him and Alan Mandelov, who was his partner, they were the two gentlemen that I worked closest with. And I would say that they began, that's when I first heard the word culture, something that you
Really?
may know of.
Really?
Yeah. I
Wow.
didn't quite understand it, but knew that this is
Wow.
what they were trying to do. There were probably four or five of us that were hired simultaneously, and we started to work closely together and do things, little happy hours, holiday parties, things like that started
Wow.
many, many moons ago. They evolved now. They were different back then, a small company, very close, celebrate the birthdays when it's birthday time. Those things
Yeah.
can't happen now. But that's when I started to think about, oh, this is pretty cool. I could see this working out.
Yeah. What would you say are some of the dramatic changes industry wide since those early days?
Well, the one of the big ones was initially we were doing the tax returns by hand. That then evolved to putting some numbers on paper, sending them to a company who would we prepare it on paper, they put it in the computer, then we get back a much nicer looking tax return, not handwritten. Getting email service, we didn't have emails when it first started, mind blowing. And then we would have our own software to do the tax returns in house. So it has changed considerably from manual to computer generated. Now it continues to evolve daily almost, right? But that is a huge change where things would be done manually, and then all of a sudden you had software that could do tax returns or the Quicken followed by QuickBooks,
Mm.
things of that nature.
Do you know when things were on hand and paper, um, what type of relationship does that create for that early? Right, so I'm new in my career, just come out of school.
You
It's
learn, you're forced to understand a tax return because you have to do it manually. You have to know that, okay, page one, this number's got to go to this schedule here and put it all together. Whereas when you put it in the computer, some of it is data entry work, and the computer is going to do the hard stuff. You can then check it to validate it, but initially, when you would do it by hand, it forced you to learn. It couldn't be right otherwise. And math, checking using the calculator to make sure that all the numbers are correct.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, like how important in the relationship between um advisor and client is the nuance, is the context.
Oh, it's so important. You need to be able to. Now, I will say some clients don't want to review the tax return. Hey, you did it. It's where we projected it to be 4 months ago. Let's get it filed. Tell me what I need to do. Out we go. Others, I'll review the tax return with them so that they have an understanding. They want to be educated. So you need to be able to tell them why the numbers are on different forms and how it impacts their taxes. So it is paramount that you have an understanding of where all these numbers come from and what they mean. Not everybody wants to take the time, Jay, to review it. They think their time is better spent. Some will say, Kevin, that's why we're paying you. And there are no surprises. These are the numbers I expected. I don't need to know the inner workings of the tax return. Others want to know, and I love that because it becomes easier to converse with them about tax issues if they have that understanding of the tax returns.
For our listeners, what how do you consider, or yeah, how would you consider the difference between like proactive versus reactive when it comes to their, and I could,
I would say it depends on their internal team and if they have the appropriate C-suite, because those companies have already become more proactive because they know that they have that need for the internal team. And they may delegate that finance or tax responsibility to an individual or a couple individuals. Other companies that can be uber successful, they just don't need a lot of people. They have a great product that sells itself, and they may not have as much time available. We always want to be proactive, but you also know because when we're doing our job right, these clients stick around for years and years and years. And you get an understanding of, hey, Jay likes to talk about this, or he's comfortable with all of this. We need to always spend time going through the numbers, but this, balance sheets don't excite Jay. Talking about how he's going to get that next big whale of a sale does. So let's talk
yeah.
about how we can do that. Or let's just talk about the variances. What his cash flow is going to be. How is he going to grow the business? How is he going to exit the business? I think our client should always contemplate how they want to exit, whether it be a year away or 6 years away. For most of our clients, their business is by far their largest asset, or it's the asset that threw off the money that allowed them to accumulate other assets.
What can thinking with the end in mind do from your experience seeing all of these business entrepreneurs thinking in the end in mind do to serve them?
So it could be, what's their legacy? Do they want to sell the company to their employees? Are there family members? Are there children? How do we get them trained so that they're able to take over? Is it a charitable function they'd like to sell because they'd like to perhaps create a private foundation, or they just want to help various commercial charities, but they have this, and sometimes it can become too late. There may be an illness, there may be a death. And so it's not always enjoyable to them doing this planning. But the more we can get them to plan, because the other part, Jay, also is how can you minimize taxes appropriately? And doing planning can do that, whether it's estate taxes, whether it's state taxes, whether it's federal taxes.
And just to clarify, the taxes, they're paid every year.
They should be throughout the year, even not just annually, throughout the year.
There's 5 million small businesses in or roughly, in the country. What if you're talking to the many, just one person, the leap from bookkeeper, maybe they're that, to partner, for like third party partner, right? They don't have a C-suite yet.
Hmm.
Many of our listeners aren't just, because we can speak to those more, but they might be a single person, or they could want to take the leap. Their dream is
Sure.
to have
Well,
their business.
I
So
think what has happened, the profession, our profession has evolved. And there are good and bad to that. So, for instance, more people are retiring in our industry than coming in annually. That is creating
in the
problems.
accounting industry,
Yep. Now, what is helping that is technology because we can do things a whole lot faster and clients can be more self-sufficient with software. So part of that problem is being overcome in that way. The other part that I've witnessed is that some businesses have just thrown up their hands because there aren't good people out there. And they say, you know what? I can't get them to come in. After COVID, they want to work from home. I'm a touchy-feely person. They can't get the reports to me timely. They're not accurate. So there are now fractional CFOs, where before it would be tough to find someone who could do 1 day a week or
yeah.
2 days a week. That is one of the ways we've seen clients kind of bridge that gap is to find a fractional person that has the skill sets and yet doesn't cost them full time. It's also an area where we've grown that companies just say, we want to outsource. Can you do everything? Or I have a clerk or two. Can you oversee them? So that's part
Fascinating.
of how our industry has evolved. And I think that that may also help keep people in the industry because they're not doing the same work day after day. There's a little bit more excitement. It's not so routinized. They're dealing with a couple different people throughout the week or the month. And hopefully that keeps accountants staying accountants.
Could you see a scenario where that fractional could have 3 to 6
Oh, well,
businesses?
I
It's
see it now.
Oh, that's is
Absolutely.
such a fascinating circumstance. So I have pride. So is it even hyper specialized? The more
Yes,
spec
it
or the
could be. It
more
could be
for those that stay in,
industry.
that stick with the business and they grow in it. It's more consultative. You could expand on that.
Yes.
What are you seeing? That's fascinating.
Yeah. Oh,
That'd be
yeah.
very helpful.
That is
And as a small
absolute.
business owner, I find that interesting. Yeah, if we could focus on our core genius,
Yes.
of course we
I
want to
think
focus on that.
getting the appropriate software, finding out what technologies you can use that you may not be using now that can assist in bill paying, making that easier. It limits the need for, let's just say, 40 hours a week of an accountant, and maybe that 6 to 8 hours of a higher level person. You're getting a bigger bang for your buck. You're more comfortable with the timeliness, and you're more comfortable with the results that you feel that they're going to be more accurate. And they are, those people are are utilized frequently are in demand.
So, okay, so because of the more people retiring, less coming in, but the technology giving everyone support to be able to what work smarter, better, faster
Efficiently,
if
yeah,
they want to, if they have those values.
right.
You're saying one of the values your firm, for example, can even provide is, hey, we have the brains and the hands for you, and that could lower your cost and get you a higher return. Because then the company's thinking, I don't need all this infrastructure internally. I
That's
can part it.
correct.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
That's
and
fascinating.
that's where
That sounds exciting, actually.
yeah, that is where it's going, and it is helping us, I can speak knowledgeably in that area, keep some people that might have said, you know what, I can't do taxes anymore. These deadlines are killing me. However, this is what I do like to do accounting, and I'd like to go into that group. And we've had people transition from one group to another. It's also the reality is being a CPA, what are we viewed as? Nerds, right? Not a sexy profession, but this opens it up to a larger, hopefully high school and college audience to say, you know what? I want to help clients. And it may not be CPA, it's
Interesting.
accountants and advisors now. And you'll see that they're the names bandied about that firms are getting away from. We're a CPA firm. We're accountants and advisors.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how did you have a personality, or did you have to develop that?
Yeah, I think
Because
I had a personality
you have a great
after.
personality. I'm just a little confused that people might be thinking, or is he really in that industry if they don't have a lot of
We are,
experience in it?
we still have plenty of quiet people, and it's what makes the world go round. And this is an old hockey, somewhat of a hockey term. We have some grinders, right? Some people that just want to do the work, and then you have some finders that help develop that business, and then you have some minders in between who don't want to be out and about, maybe not as confident, maybe have they want to be home at night because we know that it takes all hours of the day. Sometimes our clients don't want to meet during the day because they're too busy, so they want to meet at night. But I think that the successful companies have finders, minders, and grinders. And I think what I found, luckily, is that, hey, if you can communicate with people, you have a better shot at getting their business because there's a comfort level. And when you're able to build a book of business, you can dictate, you know, uh, within the lines how you're going to do things and who you're going to work with. Because if I'm bringing in clients, I know I'm going to be working with them. And a lot of times, clients, you kind of gravitate toward each other and you have a lot in common. Maybe it's the sports teams, maybe it's a certain sport, maybe it's a certain hobby. So it's pretty cool when you're getting paid to work with your friends
Hmm.
and help them succeed also.
What would you say is the driving force? If I remember correctly, Citrin started with an opportunity for a founder to serve a successful entertainment
Our
group.
seed money was given by a rock and roll band, and we started out doing a lot, and that preceded me, but a lot of work in the entertainment industry, and that was 1979, and that was Niles Citrin and Joel Cooperman. Niles was the tax guru, Joel for lack of a better term, the business and
Wow.
accounting guru. And it was a perfect combination because they had different skill sets and they were able to work it together. And the other area that has helped us grow so much is the ability to understand people and, hey, these would fit into our culture. We
Hmm.
want to merge them and kind of had that recipe for a successful merger because not to the extent of what's transpiring now, but they were smaller firm mergers that came in. And there was, hey, we've done this in the past. Now we have integration teams, right? That's all they focus on. In the past, it was, hey,
Wow.
hey Jay, you did this last time. Can you help us do this one? And maybe Kevin, could you do this because you understand it? And could you mentor this partner and somebody else mentor that? And we were kind of an amalgamation of small firms back then, and we had similar values and had gone through the eat what you kill phase. Hey, I get a client, I need to do everything for that client. And then,
Why is that important?
well, because you have to service, right? There are many accounting firms out there. If you can't service the client, be responsive, be accessible, be proactive, deliver the right work product at a fee that is fair and without surprises, they're going to go elsewhere. What we
Well,
can
love
do
that.
is
Said,
service our clients.
did you say respond, wait, respect, accessibility,
Accessible,
yeah, accessible, proactive,
no
deliver.
surprises with fees, and deliver the appropriate work product.
That's
All of those are very important.
um from like culture, right? How do you what have you seen work like how do you train that?
So I think it happens daily. One of the great stories is when we were smaller and we had an opportunity for a client, one of the partners would send out an email to all the partners, hey, do you have any experience, let's just say in the automotive industry? If you do, please contact me. Frequently, 10 minutes later, that same person would send another email. I have enough people willing to assist me already. No more responses are needed because we all knew we had to help each other. And that's
Yeah.
where the culture came from. It started at the top. Joel and Niles were always accessible and responsive and helpful. And it just you follow they led by example and everyone followed their lead. We were successful. We enjoyed what we were doing. We saw a brighter future together and helped each other out.
What advice would you have for our listeners that are interviewing potential partners that are going to invest into them? But, the way that your original partnership partner with such a long-term, right? It's been almost
Sure. I
20
think you
years.
want to see if the person is a good person. Skills can be taught. If the person is a good person and will fit in with the group, has experience, and is willing to work hard, this isn't a 9 to 5 job. And it's not the people that are going to be successful aren't the ones that are going to work from home.
You said
Sometimes
95, right? 95, not 95. No, I just that's
that is true.
you don't have to
Um,
answer.
but
95, not 95.
the individuals that work from home, I fear, are thwarting their career because they're not getting enough interaction with other professionals and with the clients. I get that it's easier. And I will say that traffic seems to be heavy everywhere these days. But ultimately, business is built upon relationships, and you're not going to have strong enough ones being behind the computer. I think through the years, all of my clients that I was fortunate enough to attract came through a relationship, either with that actual client or with another professional that gave me a warm introduction. There was one client that looked in the yellow pages, and some of your listeners may not even know what the yellow pages were. That was the big old phone book that listed all the businesses. And he said he looked in there and instead of starting with the letter A, he started backward and he got Yampolsky and he called and we got it. And that lasted for quite some time. But otherwise, that was just kind of the luck of the draw. Now, there are going to be some RFPs that come out just because of the firm name, but I don't know that you're going to be able to forge lasting
Mm.
relationships if you don't have some type of bond on the way in. Then it's almost like a commodity. And that's what we don't want to do. People can do the work cheaper than we can do it. We're not in it for that. We're in it for the long game and how we can help the client.
I think that's such an important conversation. It's why we go and see our client partners physically so regularly. We have to be where they are.
Yes, you can help them
You
more.
have to be there.
And I've also,
When I say we, I mean like us, like Culture Matters.
yes, I subscribe to the theory out of sight, out of mind. If you're not around, someone else can be. And I've heard so many times, hey, I was at a party and I heard another accountant say, and I said, well, you know that's BS, right? They're just talking. We have a bond, but if I'm not there and I'm not delivering on what I said I would deliver, everybody knows an accountant. So it's very easy for them to reach out to their trusted advisor and say, hey, you know what? I need to talk to somebody else. I don't feel like I'm important. And that's horrible because once you lose that trust, it's tough to regain it. So you need to continue to spend time with the clients, whether it be a call, whether it be, hey, let me stop in, let's grab lunch, let's grab dinner, go to a ball game, whatever the golf, whatever the case may be. I think that that is so important that you're not doing that to get that billable time. You're doing it to just continue to strengthen that relationship.
In closing, how can having a strong financial partner like advisor, accounting partner, change the trajectory of the small business owners that are listening?
So, part of what I believe my job description is to be a connector, not just what I'm doing, but hey, here's a service that you provide, or here's a product that you sell. Who else do I know in my network that can use this individual's company? So, A, I hope I can help them perhaps get the desired employees they're looking for, or the appropriate insurance, or the appropriate advisors, legal help, business. And then B, looking at their numbers and saying, hey, have you thought of this? Or have you noticed that your salaries have gone up 7.5%, but your sales have only gone up 2%? At some point in time, that's going to impact the family. And most of our clients are closely held businesses. So I'm not just talking to Jay, I'm talking about Jay
Yes.
and his whole family. How are we going to do this? We need to advocate for you. And are your margins getting tighter? Do you need to look at different suppliers? Are you extending credit too much? Are you billing and not following up quickly enough? You need to get your money quick and then you can help it can help pay off your loan quicker to save you interest. Things that they may not be looking at. Sometimes clients, business owners look at top line sales and not the entire picture and understand seasonality, but don't understand that that may mean they need to dip into their line of credit and that's going to cost them more money. So let's proactively reach out to your creditors and collect the money. The older and colder it gets, the tougher it gets to collect those dollars. And that
Mm.
gives their customers an opportunity to maybe complain a little. Oh, yeah, I don't know why you charged me this much. And I haven't paid this for 3 or 4 months. Then all of a sudden you're in a defensive posture as opposed to just saying, hey, you know what, did the work, you haven't paid yet. Let's get this paid.
Kevin, I can't wait till next time already.
Fantastic. Well, very interesting and engaging conversation as always, Jay.
And thank you for your help and your partnership, relationship, and the great things that you and Citrin do for your customers. And I'm excited to see what the future brings. If you're listening to this podcast, uh, can people connect with you the fastest? What would you recommend? At LinkedIn?
So I am not a big social media guy. I am on LinkedIn, and email kryan@citrincooperman.com.
Love it. Share this with a friend that you know needs that Benjamin Franklin quote in their life. Start building things the right way, the fast way, the smart way.
And have some fun together also. It's always enjoyable.
And we will see you next time in the Culture Matters podcast. Thank you.